Are you experiencing chronic fatigue, having difficulty sleeping, maybe even a recurring upset stomach? How about forgetfulness, a sense of uselessness, bitterness, doubt, or distrust? Do you find yourself addicted to certain behaviors? These can be outward signs of burnout. Hi, I'm Aaron Cummings with Aloha Church, Assemblies of God Lihui Kauai, and I would like to talk to you about burnout. Burnout can be defined as emotional and physical exhaustion resulting from long-term, repeated exposure to both external and internal stressors. As the definition states, it is not something that happens suddenly but progresses over time and usually a byproduct of the inability to cope and adapt. Burnout usually happens to those who are the most dedicated. It slowly creeps in and sucks out all the energy and can completely destroy your identity. Each burnout case is different. There are no two that are alike. Thankfully, it can be avoided and reversed, but we must be willing to pay attention to our heart and take deliberate and responsive steps. There are 5 steps that we can take to avoid or reverse burnout. Step number 1, seek help. Find a trustworthy counselor or colleague and talk about what you are experiencing. Every minister should have someone with whom he or she can confidently process critical issues. Galatians 6:2 says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." Pastors often try to bear their own burdens and everyone else's. That is unbiblical and unsustainable. Find someone to help you shoulder the emotional load. God will honor your vulnerability and transparency. Step number 2. Invite accountability. Once you find a trustworthy confidant, work with that person to establish healthy boundaries. Ministry demands can be intrusive and unrelenting. Healthy and appropriate boundaries are essential for overworked ministers. Yet many leaders don't know how to set boundaries for themselves. Often, others can spot signs of burnout long before you will notice them. That's why you need not only wise counsel, but also accountability. An accountability partner can help you maintain balance and process the false sense of guilt you may experience when you scale back responsibilities or say no to new ones. The third step is acknowledge limitations. Sidestepping burnout also requires a healthy embrace of our humanity. There is a limit to our personal energy and strength, which means we are vulnerable to the negative effects of overwork. Thankfully, none of us is the only laborer in the field. We need to recognize when it's time to step back and delegate ministry tasks. Not only does this give us a break, but it also lets others utilize their gifts. We know all this on an intellectual level, yet we often ignore our limitations and work as though we are indispensable. In Isaiah 40, verses 30 to 31, God reminds us that even young people grow weary and they get tired. Only He can truly renew our strength. And that brings me to step number 4. Receive grace. Ignoring the Sabbath principle greatly contributes to burnout. Working 7 days a week is not spiritual. Actually, it's sinful because even God rested on the 7th day, not because He needed the rest, but He set the model for mankind to rest and recuperate at least 1 day out of the week. Do you think God knows what is best for us? Absolutely. When you refuse to take a rest, you rob yourself of space and time to recharge and hear from God. Jesus always took time to get away to a quiet place, to experience God's grace. With this mindset, you will often offer grace to others while giving none to yourself. To avoid burnout, you must give yourself both space and grace. And the last step, number 5, accept love. One of the most important pathways out of burnout is to recognize that God loves you regardless of your performance. God's love is not dependent on productivity or perfection. He loves us because we are His children and because it is His very nature to love. Before he became a Christ follower, Paul was a slave to performance, with the law as his taskmaster. After his conversion, Paul embraced God's love as a gift that transcended his own efforts. In Romans 5:8, Paul declared, God demonstrates His love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So So the 5 steps to help avoid or reverse burnout. Number 1, seek help. Number 2, invite accountability. Number 3, acknowledge limitations. Number 4, receive grace. And number 5, accept love. When we fully accept that God has always loved us just as we are free to live joyously for Him rather than striving to live up to expectations. God's love can restore even the most severely burned out soul. And let me leave you with Matthew 11:28-30 that says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Mahalo and thank you.